Across the cold void between the spirals of the galaxy, a signal drifted in a trembling line of desperation. It carried no language at first, only terror compressed into a single pulse that shuddered through the stars. Arrays on distant listening posts caught it. Patrol nodes around forgotten moons caught it. Finally, it reached the outer detectors of Earth's exploration network, where a quiet outpost nestled against the shadowy rim of a dwarf planet, listened day after day for something like this. The technicians there froze as the pulse decoded itself into structured sound. They checked for interference. They checked for deception. All tests returned the same result. Someone was screaming for help. The message looped in a trembling chant. It described worlds in ruin. It described a coalition of small civilizations facing an enemy that grew like fire across a dry field. It described fleets torn open. It described cities erased before their defenders understood what had fallen upon them. The signal mentioned a simple plea. They begged for any force strong enough to stand between their people and the conquerors. They believed only a miracle could save them. Earth heard it. Earth answered. For generations, Earth had slowly transformed itself. The age of conflict had ended long ago, not because war vanished, but because Earth's defenders became something more than soldiers. They grew resolute, adaptable, astonishingly united in purpose. Their descendants trained under skies painted by drones and holographic fortresses. Their academies forged them in disciplines of movement, strategy, and endurance. They were called many things by their allies. To some they were guardians. To others they were monsters. To themselves they were simply creatures shaped by a homeworld that never forgave weakness. Gravity sculpted them. Weather hardened them. History reminded them that survival required resilience without limit. When the plea for help swept across the network, the commanders of the defense assemblies summoned their finest. Among them stood Ray, whose calm precision made entire units move as if sharing a single mind. Near him stood Lena, whose insight allowed her to read a battlefield before a battle formed. Cole brought strength drawn from relentless training. Vera brought a voice that steadied even the most nervous recruit. They were only a handful among thousands, but together they embodied the fierce instinct of their world. None of them hesitated when the directive came. A coalition cried for aid. Earth would answer. The fleet that launched carried vessels shaped by both elegance and brutality. Their hulls bristled with adaptive plates. Their drives hummed with reactors tuned to punch through warped space. Escort wings surrounded the main vessels like a pack around its leader. Each craft carried the same silent promise. No one who begged for Earth's protection would face their enemy alone. The journey through warped space blurred time into a steady drumbeat. On the fourth cycle of travel, the fleet received another message. This one bore coordinates. A world near the edge of a cluster named Lithera lifted a warm glow in its atmosphere as its defenders struggled to keep invaders from landing. The coalition called this world a cradle of culture. If it fell, their morale across the region would shatter. The enemy was already descending. Ray stood in the command center of the lead vessel as the holographic map formed around him. Lena traced the incoming vectors. Cole secured the deployment order for ground teams. Vera spoke to the liaison representatives who had been waiting in trembling hope. The coalition delegates never expected a response so fast. They had believed no one would hear their signal in time. Now they watched images of Earth's fleet readying for battle. Their eyes carried disbelief mixed with a fear of hoping too much. When the fleet arrived near Lithera, the enemy formation filled the darkness like a swarm of blades. Their ships cut across the horizon in jagged silhouettes. Their weapons burned along the upper layers of the atmosphere. Down below, shields flickered over cities dotted with spires and shimmering roads. Lithera's defenders were outnumbered. They were exhausted. Their lines buckled. Each moment they held, Earth's admiral issued a single order: advance. The void exploded in light as Earth's vessels surged forward. Their drives carved arcs of ion trails. Their batteries hammered into the enemy formation. The creatures of Earth did not fight with hesitation. They fought with the instinct of a species that once clawed survival from storms and predators long before it touched the stars. Every strike flowed with precision. Every movement held clarity honed by centuries of discipline. As the enemy formation shifted to respond, Earth's fleet pressed harder, turning their assault into a shield for Lithra. Ray coordinated the frontline intercepts. He predicted enemy movements with uncanny rhythm. His commands came in crisp bursts, each one allowing Earth's pilots to position themselves at perfect angles. Lena monitored the enemy formations and identified a weakness in their flank where their armor plates thinned during maneuvering. Cole volunteered his strike team to push through the opening. Vera rallied the support craft to cover his descent. The enemy attempted to scatter Earth's wings with chaotic bursts, but the creatures of Earth moved as if chaos fueled them. Their ships wove through fire with an agility that left the coalition observers speechless. It was as though Earth's defenders belonged to this arena more than they belonged to calm worlds. Their senses sharpened, their instincts aligned, their focus burned. Cole's strike team pierced the enemy flank and inflicted a decisive blow. Explosions rippled across their lines. The enemy began to withdraw from orbit, but Earth's fleet did not chase recklessly. Ray held the fleet in disciplined formation. He knew that saving Lithra required safeguarding the world below, not pursuing a fleeing force into unknown traps. The coalition representatives saw this and understood something profound. Earth's creatures were not driven by rage. They were driven by cold resolve. It frightened the enemy. It comforted the Allies. With orbital control secured, Earth deployed ground units to reinforce Lithra's defenders. Ray led the first landing. The skies above the capital city blazed with streaking debris from shattered enemy ships. Defense shields wavered. Fires burned along the outskirts. Ray stepped onto the surface as if it were another training ground. His presence steadied the Lithran troops who looked upon him with a mixture of awe and disbelief. He moved with purpose. He carried himself with an unwavering air that seemed carved from the mountains of his world. Lina joined him soon after, studying the terrain and enemy entry points. Her eyes missed nothing. She quickly mapped out the vulnerabilities in the defensive lines. Cole positioned his unit at the weakest perimeter. Vyra lifted the spirits of frightened citizens who peeked from shelters, unsure whether salvation had truly arrived. She spoke with a warmth that contrasted sharply with the hardened armor she wore. Even in the heat of battle, she embodied the compassion that made Earth's warriors different from the conquerors they fought. The enemy struck again before dawn. Their ground forces swarmed in disciplined waves. They expected to break the tired defenders. They expected to push past Earth's newcomers. They found themselves facing something they had never encountered. Earth's creatures moved with strange coordination. Their limbs carried power shaped by a world that demanded endurance from birth. Their tactics adapted instantly. Where the enemy spread out to flank, Ray shifted his formation with seamless transitions. Where the enemy attempted to overwhelm through numbers, Cole's unit absorbed the impact and counterattacked with raw force. Lena anticipated every shift in terrain. Vera ensured no defender lost heart. The coalition commanders watched the battle from their secure platform, stunned by what unfolded. These defenders from Earth seemed built from iron and instinct. They were not delicate. They were not hesitant. They were not held back by fear of failure. They fought as though every heartbeat carried a legacy of storms survived. To the coalition, they looked like creatures shaped by a world far more ruthless than their own. Yet every action they took was to protect. Every strike they executed served the goal of defense rather than conquest. As the battle stretched through the long hours, Earth's forces pushed the enemy back yard by yard. It was not through superior numbers. It was through an intensity the enemy could not match. Ray moved like a force of gravity, pulling his soldiers into perfect alignment. Lena read the flow of battle like a scholar reading a familiar script. Cole stood firm like a wall no wave could break. Vera held the lines of communication together and kept hope alive. By the end of the second day, the enemy attempted to retreat. Their transports lifted into the sky, chased by precision fire from Earth's interceptors. Their final ships fled back toward the folding points on the edge of the system. They left behind wreckage, silence, and a world saved by the arrival of beings they had never encountered. The coalition leaders approached. Earth's commanders, after the final scans, confirmed safety. Their eyes shimmered with gratitude that bordered on disbelief. They had cried across the galaxy. They had expected silence or distant condolences. They had not expected a fleet. They had not expected warriors who fought with such fierce purpose. They had not expected Earth's creatures. Ray listened to their thanks without seeking glory. Lena offered them strategies to rebuild. Cole shook hands with defenders who had feared they would not survive the first night. Vera stood among the saved citizens,